the Contact Center Association of the Philippines for Contact Islands 2025. And well,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Heidi Enriquez, President of Microphone.
Maayong hapon.
Ngayong hapon.
I'm Heidi Enriquez, President of the Contact Center Association of the Philippines. Here joined by our Chairman of the Board, Mitch Locsin. We're glad na hindi kayo nagsasawa, no? Kasi last year tayo rin yung nagkakasama. So we thought it would be a good starting point for us to just to show with some slides in here. Of course, feel free to take photos of this, or you may also request for a copy of this presentation for your reference later on. To show you how we have progressed since the last time that most of us saw each other. Okay? This pertains not just to the industry, overall industry data, but also data specific to our segment, which is Contact Center and Business Process Management segment. Okay? And then, of course, later on, feel free to ask questions. Okay, shall we move on? Okay, so what you will be seeing here for the first slides are data points as of ending 2024. Because as an industry, we update our industry information, particularly data points pertaining to revenue and FTE, usually end of the year. So the next update will be either maybe around first quarter of 2025 to reflect the updates, the updated data for the full year 2024. Now, the narrative still stands that we as an industry have remained pandemic-proof, economic downsides-proof, even government change-proof or climate change-proof. Because as of 2024, we still posted a growth as an industry. So we ended 2024 with 1.82 million FTEs, okay? And out of that, 30, okay? Out of that, we have 38. We posted a total revenue as an industry of 38 billion US dollars. Now, if we move to the slide prior to that, Hill. Okay. Now, let's just do a recap because we talked a little bit about this during our last meeting. What's the aspiration of the industry? And several years ago, we released the ITBPM 2028 roadmap, which pretty much highlighted where we aspire to be as an industry by 2028. Yung naka-red dyan, okay, shows our 2028 targets. Now, these targets had three scenarios: the low, mid, and high. Kumbaga, the conservative, the midway between conservative and aggressive, and the aggressive target. The aggressive target being high, right? If you look at the data points here, we at the end of 2024, from a revenue both from the specifically from a revenue perspective, we have already reached what we said we would, the scenario, the low scenario, the very conservative scenario by 2028. Okay? So, right now, what we're saying as an industry is that unless something drastically changes, we would be poised to hit between mid and high of our aspirations for 2020. Okay? So, next scale. Now, this is a slightly different view, now juxtaposing the performance of the entire IT BPM industry versus the biggest segment that's represented within the IT BPM sector, which is the contact center and business process sector. So, out of the revenue, the 38 billion revenue that was generated by the industry by end of 2024, 31.6 billion of that came or was contributed by our industry. That's 83% insofar as revenue is concerned. And when you take a look at the FTEs, the total number of employees, that's 88% of the IT BPM sector. So this again elucidates how economically important this particular segment of the IT BPM sector is. You may recall that last year also we talked about the different segments, and there are actually 6 segments within the entire spectrum of IT BPM work. In the Philippines, you have contact center, you have global capability centers, there's healthcare, there's software development, there's game development, and I'm missing one. IBPAP is gonna kill me. And I did mention games development already, right? Okay, so of all these 6 different segments, 88% of FTEs is or are in the contact center sector. Okay, so next. Now, what's our outlook? It's nice to look back and get situated about the now, but what's in the immediate future for us? We're already midway in 2025. As an industry, again, IT BPM industry, the forecast is that from the 38 billion revenue end of 2024, we'd be at 40 billion USD. In terms of FTEs, from 1.82 to 2%. That represents 5% increase, roughly 5% in additional in revenue, and around 9% increase insofar as FTE. Now, taking a look specifically at the contact center sector, from the 31.6, we're talking 33.2. That's again around 5% increase in revenue, 5% increase in revenue, right? And 9% increase when it comes to FTEs. So again, we are proving that we are a resilient industry. Now, what are some of the key drivers? Okay. This is based now on the pulse survey that we conducted just around a month ago amongst our member companies. The top 3 pertain to, first and foremost, the fact that even though there's a lot of changes, there's a level of uncertainty surrounding the U.S. economy for reasons that I'm sure you already know about. It has remained resilient insofar as demand generation is concerned. So it continues to be a strong demand market for the IT BPM sector in the Philippines. The second one is that because we have a very strong competitive positioning versus other countries that's well established, we remain top of mind when it comes to contact center services globally. While there are many other countries that are aspiring to be the Philippines insofar as contact center management is concerned, for now, they're still aspirants. None of them have either have achieved the kind of level of success that we have achieved, nor have they surpassed us. And then another one is how quickly the Philippine IT employers are adapting also to emerging technologies. Right? So these are the top 3 key drivers for this growth. Now, what are some of the things that our members are saying should continue to be our focus in order for us to remain our status in the global contact center industry? First and foremost, we need to make sure that as an ecosystem, this is not just a challenge for the contact center industry, but as an ecosystem, we need to do more when it comes to bridging the skills gap, especially with the new technologies coming in. Secondly, for our existing workforce, continued focus, more rigor when it comes to upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling of workers. And then, of course, because technology is fast, is just the innovation around technology and the speed by which new technology is evolving is super fast. We need to continue to enhance our technological capability. Okay, next. Now, this would be interesting. We didn't show this last year. Okay. One of the things that we said when we released the roadmap to 2028 was that we're expecting more and more jobs to be going to the countryside locations, right? Okay. So this is where the heat map, or how the heat map currently looks like. So indeed, the presence of IT BPM in the countryside is slowly but surely increasing. As of the last update, 34% of our industry, as represented by our employees, are already in the countryside. 66% being in Metro Manila. Now, let's deep dive on that a little bit further, because we are in the Visayas, in Cebu specifically. When we talk about the Visayas, this particular region actually is the second biggest, you probably know that already, IT BPM market in the Philippines, second only to Luzon. Now, let's double click. Okay. Now, where in Visayas? Of course, it's Cebu, Cebu, Cebu. So, out of the 396K, almost 400,000 FTEs in the Visayan region, which represents 34% of the total IT BPM market, okay, 160 of those are in Cebu. So, if we take a look at it from an overall perspective, that means that 15% of the total IT BPM headcount is here in Cebu. Okay? So, apart from Cebu City itself, what are some of the other cities that we are seeing to be making a dent insofar as BPO penetration is concerned? Mandaue, Lapu-Lapu, and the South Road properties. Some of the trends and opportunities that we're seeing, why we're very confident that with this trajectory, Cebu will continue to contribute more and more to the IT BPM landscape. There are various green building initiatives. We see the availability of real estate to be an additional incentive for IT BPM companies to locate to Cebu. And there are also investment opportunities provided by the additional PESA approved expansion project in the province. Okay. So we spoke to several of our clients, several of our members who are operating in Cebu, and bottom line, they continue to be very firm in their projection that of growth, projection of growth in the city of Cebu. Or city and the province also of Cebu. Okay? Okay, next, is that our last slide? Or not yet? Okay, next. Okay, that was our last slide. I hope that provided enough, enough context for us to begin our conversation.
Okay, we're gonna open the floor for question and answer. Please state your affiliation, name and affiliation before the question.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Heidi. Good morning, Sir Locsin.
Just so you know, since I did the presentation, all questions will be answered by our chairman.
Wag niyo muna i-post to, ha? Kasi that's my chairman's mostly my chairman's presentation on Wednesday.
So you have a preview of majority of it because you're special.
Okay, ma'am, you mentioned a while ago that we've become resilient on the effects of the U.S. economy. I mean, with the Trump administration, is there any FTEs that have backed up or pulled the plug because Trump is pro-America?
No naman. Majority of what Trump is implementing on the tariff side is mostly on goods. Praying that it still doesn't go into services yet.
Yeah.
So it's mostly on products, on where it's manufactured, what comes into the US, etc., etc. So it's tariffs on goods, not yet on services. So pretty comfortable on that side. It's very we're not yet comfortable on what his stand is on in terms of outsourcing or outsourcing or offshoring. Hopefully it doesn't come to that situation, but right now his focus is mainly on tariffs on goods.
Yeah. As a matter, to add to that, as a matter of fact, in one of our pulses, we did ask our members when it comes to their confidence level on our ability to maintain our position in the global market amidst all of this noise that's coming out of the US. And 90% of our members say that they're either somewhat confident or very confident that we'll still be able to maintain our market leadership.
Good afternoon, Eli Villagonzalo from the Daily Tribune. So I was looking back at the directions of CCAP in 2023 and 2024. 2023 CCAP highlights the role of generative AI in keeping the heart of customer experience strong, and in 2024, CCAP sets the stage for Contact Islands 2024, takes AI integration for CX. My question is, how many contact centers have already adopted AI, generative, and probably developed their own products and services with artificial intelligence?
100% of them. Again, and this is just based on, not just based on our own narrative, but rather based on the result of the pulse that we recently conducted. We ask our member companies to what extent have they adopted or integrated AI in their operations. 60% said they have significantly adopted, whereas 40% have moderately adopted. So all of them, all of us.
There are different types of artificial intelligence
Correct.
type of work, right? So you have all the basics from machine learning
Yes.
to chatbots that
Correct.
has artificial intelligence. That majority has already adopted. But when it comes to agentic artificial AI services, yun, you hear it naman, di ba? It's all dependent kasi if you're a shared services, I'm sure they're already adopting that from training to recruitment
Correct.
to up to the general services that they do. General software development. Actually, AI can already do the job of software development.
Correct.
And stuff like that, to third-party providers that are adopting to a lot of artificial intelligence type of solutions or platforms that they offer to their end customers. So it varies, no? But in terms of adoption, it's safe to say it's 100%.
Sir, my next question is, how does AI, or how did AI disrupt the FTEs and or probably impacted on profits and growth of each contact center?
We were actually debating about that a while ago. But when we do studies annually with research companies like Everest or McKinsey and the likes, right? They say it's a 2-year to 3-year effect that we will really get hit or feel the effect of artificial intelligence. So far, we're still growing at the growth rate that we need to grow. Albeit it might be from the traditional 8% to 6.5% and the likes. It's still growth in both revenues and FTE. No? So in terms of effect, it's still unmeasurable, I believe, and hopefully we can get into detail on that this year for the following year. Mahirap pa eh.
Yeah. Sorry, and
Okay.
it has to also be understood that many of our member companies also have diversified their service offerings, no? From focusing solely on contact center services management. Many of our members have also either bought new companies or developed organic capabilities to also deliver AI, right? And so these are all add-ons to our industry, from a single source of livelihood or revenue to now diversifying their revenue streams within the same organization. I'm sure you've seen it on the news. Concentrix, for example, buying new companies that are related to software development and security. Similarly, with Teleperformance buying a company a couple of years ago that's into recruiting, right, or RPO. So this diversification, I believe, is one of these strategies by which our member companies are preparing or are adjusting to the threats of AI, threats and opportunities of AI.
Another follow-up question. We were talking about everything big, macro side, business-wise, and generally. How about internal HR? What was the response of employees when they were tasked to learn about AI? Were there repercussions na I'll just leave, or I'll go with the tide, or what's the retention rate? What's the yung rate na umaalis na employees? Attrition rate. That's the right term.
Well, our attrition rate data so far is still not yet updated, simply because the survey is still ongoing. We have partnered with Willis Towers Watson, as we have done in the past. Last year, or a year ago, the attrition rate for the industry was at 45%. Okay? Yes, 45%, which was lower than prior years. We don't know what it will look like this year. We'll know probably in a month or two once we have the survey result. Now, the first part of your question had to do, I believe, with how our employee population, our employee base reacted to it. I can talk about general experience, right? Of course, for anything and everything that's new, the human reaction to it initially is to resist, right? And that's why many of our member companies really understood and implemented ways to communicate the intent to the employee base. That's why the focus of the industry had been the messaging around AI, and our adoption of AI was more focused on, hey, it's a threat to you and you would lose your job, but rather we are here as an industry for job preservation and employment creation. And for that to happen, we want to make sure that we invest time, energy, and resources in upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling. So all of the messaging centered around that. And I do believe, based on what we are seeing now, that our employee base take heed, right? Because otherwise, we would have seen a slowdown in the growth by FTE of the industry, but so far we have not seen that. As a matter of fact, that's what we were debating earlier. Because as an industry, we were, when we released the roadmap, the assumptions was that the rate by which our revenue would grow would outpace the rate by which our FTE would grow. But at this point in time, we are seeing that our revenue growth as an industry is at around 5%, whereas FTE growth is at around 9%. So, from that result, it appears like our employee base really has taken to AI and is slowly but surely adapting to AI rather than getting diminished by it.
Last question.
Yes.
I visited the HR, it used to be known an HR services company, and I was shocked that they have really turned around the AI in the industry. I just wanted to know if you have probably a figure of the reception of the employees. Are they more of the Gen Zs or the certain age level, or male or female? Because I was shocked with this contact center, about 90% of the leaders are female. So, bakit yung female nagli-lead ng role lang? And then they're in the less than 30s. So,
You know, that would be an interesting study to undertake. So, Gail, please take note of that. But so far, we have not gone that deep in assessing AI adoption and the demographics. I can tell you that majority of our workers now are millennials. Okay? As a matter of fact, speaking for my own company, I'm a Gen Xer. Out of 9,000 employees, there are only 7 of us Gen Xers. So I'm literally and figuratively a dying breed. And so majority are really Gen Zs and millennials. And if that were true, okay, for all of the other companies, because we generally hire from the same demographic anyways, that means we're talking about employees who are digital natives. And because they're digital natives, as compared to us who don't have Instagram, even up to now, that the assumption is that they would be more open to new technologies. There would be better learning agility when it comes to adoption of new technologies.
but they're known to be short, focused, concentration-wise, mahina. Pero how did they become,
No, because it's the sign of the times. No? So again, any tradition, even students as we speak now, are already using ChatGPT. Are
Correct.
you guys using ChatGPT already? I am sure. Well, you're in the media, so malamang, di ba? But it's really the signs of the time. And for the Gen Xers and the older generation, it's a challenge to actually start adapting, right? So, what was your question again? Ano yung question mo?
yung age level, kung demographics, if you have relation pa sa adoption.
No. I don't think so naman. It's just that it's more easier and faster for them because they grew up with a mobile phone rather than for us where besides our daily normal jobs of problem solving, we have to adapt and learn pa, diba? So it's just like that. It's signs of the times really. But in terms of artificial intelligence, to your question kanina, it's just amazing what it can do talaga. It's just scary lang, in my opinion. There are chatbots right now that can actually speak Taglish, English, and pure Tagalog, and can even negotiate when it calls you. It negotiates. So we're using that in our company. Oh, tumatawag yan sa inyo, di ba? And then doing payment reminders, and then after that, magsabi ka sa phone, kasi hindi mo kalain na tao eh. And then sabihin mo, moingon na yun ang gitawagan na, di pa ko kabayad karon.
Kapoy yung Tagalog, sir.
Oh, mo lagi. Di pa ko kabayad karon, di ba? niya ang chatbot, yung din, sir, kung pwede, taga 3 months time frame, di ba? Pero bayri anay ni karong buwan na. Sunod buwan, ani na, mo negotiate siya. Okay ka ba na, sir? Very binuang. And imagine where it will take us in the near future, di ba? So that's what artificial brings forward, right? So yun. So it doesn't, unfortunately, the adoption is stronger with the younger generation, but everybody is adopting. I mean, even our chairman or even my dad is also already adopting, right? And they're in the 80s. So my dad is in the 80s above
How old
already.
was the chairman guys?
Secret. You might quote me on that. Baka wala na akong trabaho bukas.
Sir, Ed the Freeman.
Yes, I know it.
There is an ongoing changes in the cabinet secretaries, and we don't know if the ICT will also be affected and other department
I
in the
understand,
government.
yes, yes.
yeah.
Only economic pa lang ang rinig niyo.
Yes.
Okay.
So here, you mentioned about increased collaboration with the government. So, do you have planned advocacy or wish list? Thank you. For
There are-
the new ano.
When it comes kasi to government support, no, every administration is the same. But if the sitting president is supportive of your respective industry, like specifically our industry, then it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, who the secretaries are of the
It's the
different
tone from the
government
top.
agencies. For example, the 500 million that will be given to the BPO industry that was spearheaded by Heidi for the upskilling program. I mean, that came straight from the president. So, 500.
Okay.
Sige, siya na lang yung musturya na. But what I'm saying lang is, if the president that's sitting in that, on the current administration is supportive of your industry, it doesn't matter who the secretaries are, whether it be in the Department of Education or the ICT or wherever, right?
But in the local government also, because
Local government is a different story altogether.
Yeah.
Different story yun. Kasi each LGU has its own,
yeah,
yeah,
priorities, big
Correct.
priorities.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Just to add to what the chairman said, no, the tone from the top is very, very important. Okay? And the tone from the top, coming from this particular administration, has been very positive and very supportive of our industry. Case in point, never did we get a funding directly being given or that we as enterprises can access for use for upskilling. That one has been given to us by this current administration. We actually got 740 million pesos worth of upskilling fund directly communicated to us, directly approved by BBM a couple of weeks ago during a meeting between leaders of the of our industry association and BBM in Malacanang. So
This is
500.
CAP or
No,
across?
this is for
No.
the entire IBBM industry. The 500 million will be coming from PESDEL fund, and the 240 million will be coming from the DICP fund. And as I mentioned, there have been upskilling funds that were provided to our industry before, but never was it directed to enterprises. What makes this very different is that this is for enterprise-based education and training. So that means that any ITBPM company who would want to invest in upskilling its workforce, and the upskilling has to be very specific to digital and technology skills, can access this fund. And our challenge nga right now as an industry is how do we make use of it, because we've been given only until end of the year to utilize this. And this is just the beginning. We know that what the administration wants us to show is that we can use it and we can put it to good use, and there's more of that coming afterwards.
So the fund is can be accessed
By the enterprise, okay?
from the office of the president.
Through TESDA. The 500 million is through TESDA, the 240 million is through DICT.
So may takers na po ba?
Ay, oo. Company ko pa lang 10,000 na kaagad ang kinumit namin eh. We're now in the process of getting commitments from the different companies. Right? But our target is around 60,000 at minimum to be trained between now and the end of the year. Okay? So the HR Council of CCAP actually sent out a survey to our member companies last Friday night. Okay, so we're hoping that by maybe tomorrow, in the next couple of days, we'll have better indication of how many commitments have been given by our member companies. So again, this is enterprise-based. So which means that if I want to train all of my 9,000 workforce in microsourcing on AI skills, what I would be spending for that particular training, I can reimburse through that 500 million fund. It's through, it's via reimbursement. Yeah. As a matter of fact, last week, we underwent already with TESDA a workshop. I attended a workshop. There were around 106 participants on how to cost your training, including expenses in electricity, in water, printing. All of those can be inputted into the worksheet and then reimbursable by the government through this fund. Amazing, right? So this gives enterprises like us real incentive in making sure that we continue upskilling and reskilling our workforce. Again, it's job preservation, job generation.
Hello, good day. Kaiser Fontes from the Manila Times.
Hi.
So I'd like to ask lang ma'am, your side on this contract issue. Like, you presented that the figures are continue to be positive.
Yes.
But recently, there were made to the headlines the several firms masking as a IT-BPM companies when in fact they're doing fraudulent activities. How will these affect our overall IT-BPM sector? And how
Yeah. So those fraudulent activities, no? You see one here. I haven't seen one in a while already. That was just posted. Timing naman, di ba, grabe, and we're here. The industry is here in Cebu. But it doesn't really affect us, but it helps us become more watchful as an industry association and also through our members, so that we will take a very big step on making sure that these type of activities are curbed out. Kasi it ruins the image and the country and the Filipino people. So kailangan, we have to take a bigger role on that. So as an association under CCAP, we took it upon ourselves with the board now. We will be taking more active steps or action, no, on making sure that these fraudulent type of activities does not happen again. Kasi hindi namin members eh. Hindi namin member yun. We don't know it. We've never heard of it. But we have visibility because our members are spread out across the country. We work closely with the real estate developers. We work closely with a lot of the ICT, the hardware and software providers that support the BPO industry. So we would know who are these ones coming in. We have a lot of SME members, SME which are large already in nature. And when we do interview process to become a member, to represent, again, to be part of CCAP or the other industry association, we do a physical site survey, we do oculars, we investigate basically ownership, etc. So again, what we're trying to do is to help again that these type of activities does not set up in the country sana. No?
Yeah.
Help the industry, help the country basically.
And I also would like to make an appeal, no, to all the IT-BPM workers out there. You know, safeguarding of our industry
For the
doesn't just
country.
reside amongst us officers of the industry association. The last line of defense, well actually the first and the last line of defense are those people who are actually in the front seat. These are our contact center agents or our frontline workers. Okay? While CCAP currently has 167 member companies, we know that there are many out there who are masquerading as legitimate contact centers that are not our members, and therefore have not been subjected to the kind of rigor that we assess membership to the association. So if you are aspiring to become an employee of one of these companies, ask them first, are you a member of CCAP? Or easier, go to our website and check whether that company is a member of the association. Because by doing so, you know that there's some level of governance that went around the ensuring that this is a legitimate BPO player. So that's one. And then secondly, I'm sure you know as a worker whether what you're doing is legitimate or not. Okay? And then just call it out. Okay? Maybe not to your bosses if you know that they're also in cahoots, but call it out to the industry association or to the relevant government bodies. Right? Because again, we need to understand that this industry's economic impact goes far beyond what we as industry practitioners experience. Right? For every one job in the BPO industry, the economic impact extends to 7 other individuals. Right? It may be parents, it may be siblings, it may be your taho vendor that's generating revenue from this industry. And any negative press about it, right, wrong, or indifferent, will have some form of impact, either on reality or on perception about our industry. So do that. Safeguard the industry, not just for your own personal purposes, but for the betterment of the entire Philippines.
Just a follow-up naman. Kapit ko naman from you mentioned to safeguard the industry. Do you closely work with authorities? Because before this incident, last December also, there were 2 BPO executives who were arrested in the US. So,
$44 million.
yeah, also accused of fraud.
Publishing scam.
O fishing also. Okay, sige. Well, we have not heard of that, obvious to our...
So I guess that's not part of outsourcing offshoring kasi fishing is done through
No, it's publishing.
publishing.
Outsourcing.
book publishing scam. But they're operating in the US.
Here.
Cebu.
Their targets are elders in the US.
It involves $40 million, allegedly.
Oh, really? I mean, that went under our radar. Huh?
Ecocentrics.
Okay, so they were operating here in Cebu.
It's call center.
Ano
It's
double
call
As a
center.
call center.
Wala mong gusikap diri nga active.
Makakasing mo na diya ron.
Right? So well then, it's a call on us to make sure that we have better
So-
visibility, I think, in the city. And the good thing is that the mayor is going to be here tomorrow. We'll have an opportunity. He confirmed already his attendance, not tomorrow, but Wednesday, sorry.
Outgoing or?
No, the mayor-elect.
Incoming.
The mayor-elect. Okay, and this is
Because
something
they
that
have
we,
the 24, because of the 24 hours
City Hall at night.
For
at
BPO.
night, City Hall at Mayor,
24
Mayor at night.
for the BPO
Oo.
center.
very good, very good.
Sleepless.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, City Hall.
So I'll give the floor to our chairman, but I would like to go back to what you mentioned, what you spoke about earlier, Calvin, about how we are safeguarding our industry when it comes to bad actors. I'll talk about One Trust Link, but before that, I think Chairman.
Go ahead.
Okay, so more to our ranks, right? One of the things, I do not know whether I spoke about this with you last year, but one of the great initiatives that our industry association, CCAP, initiated several years ago, I believe it was around 3 years ago, to protect ourselves, our ranks against bad actors, right? Because we may be legitimate BPO operators, but if there are employees amongst the 1.6, even just 1 or 2, who intend to do something fraudulent, then that impacts also the entire industry, right? So 3 years ago, we started a movement within the within the Contact Center Association of the Philippines, an initiative called One Trust Link. Okay, One Trust Link is a platform in which those who have committed and are found to have committed fraudulent activities in their respective companies may be reported. Okay, that's how we safeguard ourselves against this, because typically, of course, not all of them get incarcerated, right? Because it's a lengthy process to take them to court, right? But what to do while that particular case is ongoing? These people can still go from one contact center to another, right? So One Trust Link is an initiative to prevent that from happening. So now we're able to keep track and have visibility, shine the light on those people who have committed fraudulent activities in their prior organization. So as compared to before, where they have been operating completely under the radar. So member companies who subscribe to One Trust Link will have visibility on the names of these individuals. Now, one of the things that's great, that's even greater, that has happened lately, is that while it started as a CCAP initiative, we signed a memorandum of agreement with IBPAP, the IT-BPM Association of the Philippines. So now this particular platform is already available for the entire industry, not just CCAP. Okay? So again, policing our own ranks. Because the action of one bad actor can negatively, adversely impact hundreds of thousands.
So we would just like to ask about the proposal of reaction from the proposal of Mayor-elect Nestor Chival of a 24-hour city hall that will cater to BPO companies for employees that they don't have to go on leave if they have transactions with the city hall.
Love it. We'd love to hear more about it from him. I will
Great idea.
specifically ask him tomorrow about it. But from that concept alone, I think it's great. Magpapa kami na, love it. Love it. You know, one of the things kasi, when the question earlier about administration support to the industry, and something was alluded to about the LGUs. You know, we know that the national government now is very, very supportive of the industry. Pero pagdating kasi sa local government units, because they are independently operating, there are still challenges in that particular area. So the more local government units that are supportive and are showing from a legislative perspective, better support for the industry, I think the better, because then the other LGUs have a model or a template to follow, especially those who are aspiring to be another Cebu, right? Because while many countries out there are aspiring to be the next Philippines, I kid you not, pretty much all of the LGUs there, the digital cities, all of those emerging IDPPM destinations, have Cebu as their North Star. How to be Cebu, how to be like Cebu. Okay? And initiatives like that, I believe, will further solidify the position of Cebu as an IDPPM-friendly destination.
Yeah, Mars Musqueda of Business News Asia. In relation to the topic that you discussed about digital cities, since that was the topic last year, while the Visayas has increased its share of the national pie, it's growing. It's still Cebu. It's not Bohol, it's not Negros, it's not Leyte, it's not Tacloban. So, what do you think are still the problem or the issues being faced by these LGUs? I mean, we have Dumaguete, we have Ormoc.
The other
yeah,
LGUs. No, kasi
yeah.
it's all about timing, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm from Ormoc. I brought already BPOs to Ormoc. It's really all about timing. I don't think it's an issue of the LGU. It's the issue of the number of talent that you can get from that respective LGU. Because it's a very big investment for a BPO to put up shop. Diba? And sometimes, when they do that, they want to be assured that you have the talent pool ready there. The issue rin kasi is majority of the talent, as an example lang of Tacloban and Ormoc, the kids would rather go to Cebu because it's where the happening place is. It's just like Metro Manila, right? Before, majority of the time, no one wanted to set up in South Luzon or North Luzon because all the kids wanted to be in Metro Manila because it's the happening place. So you get that. But eventually, they realize, or as the years go by, the next generation gets older, they want to go back home naman and settle back, right? Or the pandemic, for example, a lot of these kids went home to the provinces and didn't want to come back anymore to the metro. So it's all about timing. The cities you mentioned in the Visayas are still part of the next wave cities. You know naman where I work. I've set up so many big circuits for BPOs in Dumaguete, in Bohol, in Iloilo, Bacolod, of course, which is already a normal. Tacloban, we used to have one very big one there by Alorica. That was that Alorica? Bongbor has BPO. Haro. And na super typhoon lang sila doon, but it's the next, that it will happen. It's just all about timing. Before, wala namang BPO sa Lawag. Wala nga kaming fiber back then. And then you had Accenture. You had another BPO that called us and said, we're setting up. Lahat kayo ng fiber doon. So eventually, it will happen. The good thing about it is majority of these LGUs already know how to prepare their respective cities to be BPO ready. That's guided by DICT along with IBPAP, CCAP, and the rest of the industry associations on the requirements for them to be BPO ready cities, right? We work closely with the ICT councils of these respective cities. So again, it's all about timing in my opinion.
Yeah. Apart from the obvious, labor availability, infrastructure, business-friendly environment, the selection of a location, we need to also take into consideration the point of view of the clients that we want to attract. Admittedly, many of the clients take a look at how accessible a particular location is to them, right? If Cebu holds a very distinct place in that area because you have an international airport that serves many locations from which our clients are coming from. okay? Because if you're traveling already for 15 hours, and then to get to, for example, Cebu, and then from Cebu, you will have to take another hour flight or another 2-hour or 3-hour combination of land trip and sea trip to get to your destination. That becomes less attractive to them. So I do believe that as more infrastructure making our islands more accessible, not just to each other, but to our demand market, then we'll see more of these happening. As yeah, like even our speakers, our international speakers who are flying in from either Australia or the US, many of them are not going through Manila anymore. They're flying straight to Cebu. But how many of the other big cities and provinces in the Philippines have that kind of accessibility advantage? So, yeah, but still from a labor catchment area, it's still a smaller one as compared to Cebu. Cebu kasi has a distinct advantage that you have many small neighboring island cities and municipalities, but at the same time, you also have other labor catchment areas outside of Cebu City.
Okay, just like to ask about the next 3 days, the conference, about it, and the highlights of this conference this year.
Okay, so basically, this year is going to be, I think we're gonna be giving you this naman, no? So we're gonna still continue to, one of the main topics kasi, the way we posture our team every year for the Contact Islands Conference, I think it's one of the largest BPO conferences in the Philippines, is we do a lot of surveys and we do engage a lot with our members and ask them what keeps them up at night, no? Or what's in their mind, or how can we continue to better serve them, or how can we better continue to serve the country. And we collate all of these information that we gather into various surveys. So we're going to be talking about the global tariff wars or the global geopolitical issues. So that will be one of the topic, and does it affect our industry? Does it affect the Philippines, etc., etc. Second, we're going to be focusing on, of course, the continued discussion on talent, right? Whether it's adoption to technology, the readiness of the talent pool that is being churned out of our schools and universities in the country, etc. And third is technology. Artificial intelligence would be a very big topic. No? And again, you're gonna hear a lot of that. So I kind of want to invite all of you kasi kayo, hindi kayo nag-attend eh. Oh, hanggang, no. Eh, you even got to see na my deck, present na ni Heidi eh. Diba? You should attend kasi you get to mingle also with CEOs of the various BPOs that, you know, if you had any questions, could give you other type of insights too, right? So it's a gathering of minds, it's a time to do networking, etc., right? So please attend if you can.
Yeah, so one of the things that we really wanted to achieve during this particular conference that's different from the others is a better understanding of our position in the world as a global contact center destination. We said that, hey, this time around, let's ask people who have line of sight in other countries and how competitive they are, particularly on their space, to talk to us about how we stack up versus these other emerging destinations, and have a hard conversation with us if or when needed about this. That's why you will note that in our program, we invited the likes of Kearney, which rates different countries' desirability as an ITBPM destination. We invited Everest, who does the same thing. We invited major PE firms like KKR, which is one of the biggest private equity management companies in the world, to come in and tell us, well, what sets what's attractive to investors about the Philippines and what makes you not so attractive to PE firms like us. So all of these great minds are going to converge during Contact Islands to have real talk discussion with us. That's why